It's not a grocery list that you give to God, saying, I need this, I need this, I need this. Can you give it to me? If you answer that one thing, yeah, that'd be great, awesome, cool.
Which, real quick, I do want to say, and I know you two probably aren't like this, I will say, though, with most Christians that I meet, it does seem like that is kind of what prayer is to them. That it is a wish list that you give to your deity.
Yeah, but that's not Christianity, right? So, like, a prayer is actually meant to foster a relationship. Welcome to Mead Talk. Thanks so much for coming in tonight and staying for Mead Talk. Appreciate it so much. Mead Talk is a place where we get to come together and drink some mead and talk about some of the greatest things in the world.
Oh, wait.
Oh, yeah.
I was supposed to do the tuck. You to line everything up.
It's all good. We got it now.
Yep.
We're good. But
We're solving the world's problems.
Yeah, solve the world's problems. We believe that everything is better with mead, and which means that everybody up here has drinking at least a minimum of 3 glasses of mead. Yeah.
I'm on my 4th.
So, for thousands of years, people have come to the same table and drinking this wonderful beverage and had many discussions about life. And we intend to do the same thing and continue that wonderful tradition. So, tonight, we have a part 2. Oh, and by the way, there is a wireless mic, so the audience can get involved as they would like.
If you have any questions, comments, concerns.
Yep. Step up to the mic and voice that opinion. Where is the mic right now?
It's up there on the bar.
The mic is up there on the bar.
Yeah, Susan might have taken it. Are you holding the mic hostage, Susan? Okay, Susan's holding it hostage.
Got to shoot a signal all the way a Boston.
Can you give us a quick mic check on it while we're here?
That was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
I'm calling in from Boston.
Yes.
Calling in from Boston.
Yes.
I think she'll go to Boston. I think she'll find a new life where no one knows her name.
All right. So, we believe that mead is one of the greatest beverages around. So, we get to come together, drink it, and see what comes out of mead drinking mouths.
Side note.
Yeah.
I had a buddy of mine.
Yeah.
I know we already talked about this.
Yeah.
15 years ago, one of my neighbors. Him and his wife are the type of neighbors you pray that you're going to have in your lifetime.
Yeah.
They were Puerto Rican. Every time I walked out on my back porch, I smelled the food on the smoker. Every time I saw him, hey, what you got cooking? Hey, you'll find out.
Puerto
Come
Rican
on
food
over.
is so good.
Yes.
Oh my Lord.
And so there was a lot of drinking Puerto Rican rum, smoking Puerto Rican cigars by a fire while our dogs. He had 2 pits. I had a Doberman, and they would just go back and forth between the yards and play. A lot of talking, a lot of community stuff going on between the neighbors.
Unlike
but he
my
recently
neighbors,
reached out to me, and he was at a meadery. He moved to Plant City, Florida, and there's a meadery down there he was at. But he reached out to me today and told me about it. He was talking to the owner there about a couple of his buddies, me and my brother, that he knew that had a meadery in Alabama. Small world.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So we got a part 2 tonight.
Yeah. So
Part
I was
2.
on before.
This is Nathan, by the way.
Yeah.
This is Nathan.
I work here.
Nathan works here.
He works here.
I think he only does it because we give him free mead for the first 3
Honestly,
to get on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great perk, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful perk. No, I'm here mostly because I like brewing mead,
Yeah, man.
and I think brewing mead is really fun. So.
It's an art
Well,
and a science.
That was one of the
Exactly.
reasons I didn't really care if you knew anything about it, or knew anything about brewing mead when I hired you. It was that you had passion to do it,
Absolutely.
which I thought was really cool. I think it's more important for somebody to have passion for something that they do than it is for them to have intellectual knowledge for it, right?
Passion is how you get started. Passion is what drives the hunt for that intellectual knowledge.
It's the drive,
Mm-hmm.
It is. It really is. I mean, it's cool to see now that you've done a few of them and you've seen them go from start to finish to tap and see how all that whole process is. It's pretty cool, huh?
Absolutely, man. Honestly, it's magical. I've
It
been
is.
having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I've been having a lot of fun.
I know there's a lot of cleaning involved, and I know that part sucks. Trust me.
I don't
90% of the job.
Yeah, I don't even think about it as it's happened. I just, I turn off my brain in those moments.
Yeah.
You know, shield myself from the darkness.
Yeah, those are the.
You go to a quiet room with a dog and cry while you do that.
Yeah, exactly. I have to
too.
take frequent breaks while I'm cleaning.
Yeah, that's the mindless work behind it, but the other stuff is pretty interesting and intricate, and it is it's a process that it's science, it's art, it's voila.
Well, relating it back to part one of our discussion, I mean, honestly, it's for me, mead is also is something that connects us directly to the divine.
Yeah,
As is all forms of alcohol, to be fair, but. Mead in particular, I mean, that's the only kind of alcohol that can realistically form in nature, unless you're talking about cider with crab apples, which, foxes and squirrels do eat those.
Yeah. But elephants drink mead.
Elephants drink mead, it's true. Yes.
Yeah, but real apples didn't really occur in nature. That was something that was bred by us.
Yeah, apples are a domesticated product of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
For alcohol, specifically, not for eating, but for alcohol. And it didn't become something you ate until I think early
later.
1900s.
Yeah, it took a long time for apples to get delicious, actually. Apples used to be mealy, almost like starchy, like potatoes almost.
Well, they were a berry, actually. So they were a berry that came from Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, they were like a berry. They weren't necessarily a berry because they were on a fruit or on a tree, right?
Right.
But technically, the classification wasn't a berry, but that's how small they were.
Right.
It's pretty wild. Literally. But yeah, this is part 2. Part 1, we talked about Nathan here and his belief system.
My wacky belief system.
I wasn't gonna say that. You said it.
Hey, listen.
I didn't say it. Okay.
I can be humble. I can joke about it. I'm not,
well, it's not of the norm. I mean,
course.
okay. So I would say that most things aren't of the norm anymore.
No.
So.
Well, what is normal even nowadays? I mean, what it means to be normal is kind of, I mean, arbitrary at best.
Yeah, I would say there's biological norms. I would say there's, there are still some norms in the world, but mentality and spirituality wise, norm is far from norm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's why common sense used to be common. Now it's a superpower.
Well, I mean, even back then, it begs the question, what was common sense and what is considered common sense today?
Yeah.
It changes. It changes as our environment changes.
Well, I have a sort of a definition for what common sense is.
Sure, yeah.
It's the ability to have deductive reasoning and logically sound principles, right? So and the ability to, well, I mean, that's the core of it, right?
Right.
But the ability to learn, right? I think it's important to be able to learn.
Yeah. So I agree with you there. I feel like that that falls under the purview of just being rational, right?
Yeah.
I feel like when we talk about common sense, though, we're talking about a colloquial, just these are things that a wise man would do, things that we know are good to do or are useful to do.
And I think that's the problem now, is that there are way too many people out there that are irrational.
That are what? I'm sorry.
Irrational.
That are irrational.
Irrational. Yeah, no, that's
They're
true.
very, 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 well, I think that emotion has taken hold of a lot of people in the world.
And you cannot have emotion and logic.
Well, rationality, I feel like, ultimately, what can be said of it when it comes to that is just that it isn't innate in human beings, right? Rationality, I feel like, is something that you learn to to framework everything into, learn to tailor your experiences with. It's not something that you come out of the womb, already in your head, ready to go.
Unless you're a genius.
Yeah, unless you're some kind of super genius. Or, some kind of autistic, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've seen that with kids. So.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And one something they learn.
Yeah. No, as someone who is neurodivergent myself, it's it's interesting. I'm ADHD, of course. I'm not autistic, but our brains, nonetheless, work differently from normal people. And so some things
Again,
can come
what's
easily, right? Of course, it's hard. It's hard to define. It's arbitrary.
Yeah.
There's I feel like a spectrum of normality, just as there is a spectrum of abnormality. Like, there's a bunch of things that you might consider to be normal, but as it gets closer and closer to the fringe, it's like all of a sudden, all right, well, where am I drawing the line between abnormal and normal?
It's not normal to skip everywhere, but it's normal to walk everywhere.
Right, yeah. Well, or you could say it's normal to move. It's a little less normal to walk with like a perfect stride. It's a little bit, less even than that normal to skip everywhere. And it's a little bit less normal than that to like horse girl gallop everywhere, right?
There is a girl I've seen on YouTube that does gallop like a
yeah,
horse.
I've seen it
You've
too.
seen
It's
that.
crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is abnormal in
On
my eye.
all fours.
Yes.
Does she have a pair of coconuts?
No. But she needs somebody to follow her with them so that she is truly a horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where'd you get those coconuts? I don't know if you've ever seen Monty Python. And
Yeah,
Holy Grail,
no,
but
of course. I love
Yes.
Monty Python.
I'm about to say, you're a little young for that, but
No, I love Monty Python, man.
Okay.
It's great.
Okay.
It's
just a flesh wound.
Tis but a scratch.
Run away! Run away! Bring out the dead.
We are the knights who say knee.
Anyways,
Yeah.
so, last talk we talked about, a lot of things. We didn't get we got pretty deep into a lot of stuff. But
I feel like we kind of hopped around a fair bit.
Well, that happens.
Eventually, the conversation ended up turning mostly into, I guess, mostly discussions oriented around the Bible, and I feel like that was kind of counter to what we were trying to do. This time,
it turned into more of like a
right.
semi-debate.
Yeah,
Right?
and this time I want to do more of an open discussion about about certain things, starting with preface. Last time I made some wacky jokes, right? I was 9 glasses deep. Just want to start that off. But also, it's important for me to say, I feel like, while most Christians are what I would call mythic literalists, as in they adhere to the word of the Bible as is a literal historical account, I, as a pagan, as a Norse heathen, am not a mythic literalist. So therefore, a lot of the attributes that I, have shared about certain deities, for example, like Freyr and Freya, who I described as having, an incestuous relationship. While in the myth, that is true, and we find that in the Locusina, in the Poetic Edda. In actuality, I have no idea if that's true, 100%. I just know that they are both deities of fertility, and I know that they have stories about them that tell of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily hold that to be fact, though. You know what I mean? And another thing too, the thing I said last time about King James, because I remember there was a brief moment where you were a little surprised because I was making fun of the fact that he was a bisexual.
Yeah.
I was only doing that because of the conservative propensity to think of something like bisexuality and homosexuality in general, just queerness, as abnormal, right?
Yeah.
Using that conservative logic, in that framework. So King James, he was bisexual. He was also a conspiracy nut and a weirdo who did a lot of awful things to his own people. And for that reason, it's one of those things where when I approach people like that, even historical figures, I will use their standards against them, So if I'm talking to another conservative or whatever online and they're being rather bitchy, I will point out the fact that they're not acting like a man,
Yeah. Yeah. Understandable. I would say that, to counter that,
Right.
yeah, not everybody is a good person, right?
For sure, yeah.
And
No.
I would say that most people aren't good people.
Well, you would say all people aren't good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that we have a tendency of leaning towards doing good.
Chugga chugga.
I would say
There's
that
a
we're
train going by.
not good by nature, right?
Yeah, and I disagree with that. I think that ultimately humans are not good or evil by their nature. We are inherently neutral. We don't come out of the womb with a sense of morality, with an idea of what is good and what is evil. It's up to our parents and those that are in our community to teach us what is good and what is evil from a young age.
I disagree with that because, and I think we've had a discussion about this.
Yeah.
Because kids, if that were the case, then it would be a lot easier for me to influence my kids to do right, to not lie, to not steal.
Right.
However, it is a constant battle.
Well, there's a maturity aspect.
They know, well, but
Okay.
if it
What
was
does that mean?
If it was ineptly neutral, I'm showing them and telling them what is good, yet they still go the opposite
Right.
way.
So
to me, ineptly, it is there's an evil, there's sin.
So when I talk about the maturity complex, when it comes to that, I feel like that pretty much nails down on the head why some children are going to be rebellious no matter what. Ultimately, is because with maturity comes brain development, physical brain development, and I think that the less developed your brain is, the less likely it is you're going to actually be able to understand, why something is the way it is, unless you are, explained Big Bird style, basically, unless you're literally spoon-fed the information, which I feel like most people don't know how to, and so therefore most people go uninformed because the people around them don't know how to inform them. I think ultimately in our society we rely on maturity to guide, our morality.
So I would
and we
say-
kind of forsake teaching morality at a young age.
Yeah, so I would say it's actually harder when somebody becomes more mature to explain to them why something is good versus bad.
At a certain point, yeah, because a child's brain is very sponge-like. It soaks up that kind of information very quickly.
So just to clarify, let's say Jeffrey Dahmer.
Sure.
Do you think his parents taught him to do what he did?
No, but the thing is with Jeffrey Dahmer, I feel like that's a different argument. That comes down to psychopathy, and that's something's wrong. There's a horrible imbalance in the brain, and he's unable to actually empathize with people, unable to form social bonds the same way that we do, if at all, even.
Yeah.
Which is why people like Dahmer exist, and why monsters continue to plague us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that particular development into that particular individual, everyone's capable of.
I don't think so. I don't think that a normal person, someone that is,
How do you define normal,
neurotypical,
though?
or again, I should clarify. Neurotypical, someone that is neurotypical, someone that has a brain that functions like the grand majority of everyone else, right?
So
Someone like that does not have, I feel like, the capability or potentiality of causing as much harm as someone like Jeffrey Dahmer did.
So let's take a serial killer out of it. Let's say somebody that's neurotypical
Sure.
that gets in an argument with his girlfriend or wife and decides that he's just going to shoot her. Would you consider him neurotypical?
I've had a friend that
consider
did that.
I wouldn't consider them neurotypical at that point. I would consider them undiagnosed.
Okay. I mean, I had a friend that was seemed perfectly normal, right? And he got in an argument with his wife and shot her twice in the chest, once in the head.
People can seem totally normal, but ultimately you never know what's going on inside someone's head.
Yeah, totally. But what leads them to do something like that, right?
Again, with psychopathy, it's a genuine just lack of a capability to form empathetic connections with other people.
So okay.
But if we're talking about non-psychotic people that are committing crime, it mostly has to do with socioeconomic and self-ID factors.
I would say on a larger perspective, yes.
Yeah.
I would say if you're looking at larger statistics, yeah, it's like
let's say theft, for example, right?
Yeah.
People don't normally steal for no reason unless they're like a kleptomaniac, which again is a form of, I feel like a form of psychopathy. You are unable to to stop yourself with that, and you're unable to understand what you're doing wrong.
They know exactly what they're doing wrong. That's
They
why
do
not
know
always.
it. Yeah, most
They
of
do
the time
know.
they do know that
they
it's
do
wrong.
know the difference between right and wrong.
They
When
might,
you sit and have a conversation with them, they know.
They might understand on an abstract level that it is, right or wrong on, like, from the societal point of view. But if you actually sit down with these people and you talk to them, they're like, what's going on inside their head, they don't know. They don't distinguish that kind of thing. For them, what is good is, what is experienced to be good. I feel like, they ultimately don't have a reference for what is good on a societal level because they don't, have those kinds of connections. They don't have the ability to form those connections.
I would say a lot of times they know, they just don't care.
Either or, man. That's semantical at that point.
Thank y'all so much for coming in.
Thank y'all.
Y'all
You have a
good
wonderful
night.
night. And that seems to be the problem, right? But like, I mean, I say, I say a lot of things out of experience.
Congratulations.
Bye, guys. Y'all have a good day.
Hey,
Y'all have a good night.
congrats, Miss Mary Cherry. All right.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, the whole, what drives a person to be a particular way. Like I've been driven to be particular ways in my life,
For sure.
and and
I've
it
been
wasn't
driven to be a particular way.
yeah. Well, and so, but what that process that goes through your head when you look at another human being and you're able to take their life is, what gets you to that point, I think is very important, right?
Yeah.
Because most people are normal individuals, right? That wouldn't do that, but still and yet they will.
Yeah, it all depends on circumstance, and with that, again, yeah, it totally depends on my opinion on environmental factors, on socioeconomic and even sometimes political factors,
But then you have
self-image too.
but
that
but
comes
then
into
there's
it.
but okay, so and I like to look at the extremes for a reason, right?
For sure, yeah,
Because
yeah.
they matter. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so one extreme example that I've seen in multiple cases, Anthony Robbins is one. That
I'm not familiar with his name. Who's Anthony Robbins?
He's very famous for speaking and doing motivational speaking.
Okay.
He uses neurolinguistic programming to help people utilize their brain, utilize the tools of the brain to change their mindset and become who they want to be, right?
Cool, yeah.
And
Sounds awesome.
even get rid of, just all sorts of mental issues, right?
Get rid of.
Yeah, completely get rid of them, right?
Okay, that's see.
So, okay,
And saying this, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but you say a lot of stuff like that, and you say a lot of health stuff about like health too,
Yeah.
like physical health, and
Yep.
I'll just put it like this, as a heathen, my dad always told me that if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
yeah.
And to be honest,
I agree.
almost everything you say when it comes to health, especially like mental health,
Yeah.
does sound too good to be
So
true.
is that why you're a pagan? Because Christianity sounds too good to be true?
No. No, all right. I'll concede to the gotcha, but no. No, I'm a pagan because of my experience with divinity, not because of a preference to either or oh my gosh, it just can't be real. Obviously, it's just too good to be true. No, I actually think that the reward for being a Christian, heaven, that kind of afterlife is actually very, in my opinion, would be very torturous. I'm not fond of the idea of submitting to that deity.
Yeah, and
in
that's
that way.
most people's problem, right?
Yeah.
That's because they're prideful. right?
No, it's
Yeah.
not. It's not prideful.
Well,
it's
that's
just
what it
I don't.
would be.
It's just, I don't
most
wanna,
people
I don't
think
wanna,
they are their own God. That's why they have a problem submitting to a
That
higher deity.
I'm
I'm not saying you.
I don't
I'm
think
just
that's
saying most
true
people
though.
do.
Well, that
That's
is
why
pride. That's
Scientology
pride.
exists.
You just explained
What?
pride in its essence, right?
How is that pride?
So you don't want to submit to an authority.
I don't want to submit to that authority.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's-
No, I'll own up to that. I have pride. I have enough pride to say that I won't submit to an unjust authority. No.
So, and I believe pride is the essence of all sin.
I think he's
right?
a fully
It is the-
just authority.
like,
we'll rendezvous on that one.
but not being able to let go of your own desires is a problem, I think, in the world, right? Because it leads to addiction. It leads to a road that,
Yeah.
if you do what the Satanist Bible says, which is only about 67 pages long, and
Because that's all Satan could squirt out his ass.
That's all LaVey could squirt out of his ass.
yeah. But it basically states, do what you want to do. Do what
Do what thou wilt,
Yeah, and so
but
that's
harm none. That's the Satanist principle. The do what thou wilt and who gives a fuck. That's the thelemic principle of Aleister Crowley, and that's different. That is different.
Yeah, but it's still do what you want.
That's
It is still do
debatable.
what you want. But honestly, though, if the principle is
But hold
do
on.
what you want but
Hold
harm
on.
none,
If
I
Satanists,
feel like that's a pretty reasonable thing to agree with.
if
you know?
Satanists,
that's freedom.
If
ultimately.
Satanists say do what you want without harming others,
yeah,
they have morals. Where are they getting their morals?
it's axiomatic beliefs when it comes to morality. Axiomatic beliefs, just quickly defined, are beliefs that someone might hold that are not justifiable, that someone cannot reasonably justify, unless you want to get into meta-ethics, which, honestly, I do not.
Well, it's a philosophical debate then, right?
Yeah, it is
But
definitely a
I believe in
philosophical debate.
philosophical evidence, right?
For sure, yeah. No, you can prove something through philosophy.
Yeah.
I totally believe that.
Yeah, and I explained to you I'm more of a philosopher than I am a scientist,
Right.
Even
Which
though that's
I-
what my degree's in, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Which
a lot
I-
of
which
science
I am
comes from
too.
philosophy.
Of
Yeah.
course, yeah, of course. No, it's a mistake to assume that the soft sciences are somehow distinct, from science as a whole. Ultimately, hard science and soft science only refers to, whether or not they deal with the physical world or, something more abstract.
Yeah.
Yeah, soft science even came first, so it's one of those things where if you want to appeal to tradition, one of them is going to be more inherently valid than the other.
So has anybody ever told you my God created your gods?
Someone has told me that, and it's just not true.
Why do
Why?
you believe that?
Because I hold that the gods came from another entity, namely Bor, who was the son of Buri, who was licked free from the ice, the primordial ice, from the primordial cow, Autumla, who was the kind of, I guess, like compatriot of Ymir. Ymir was the first being to ever come into the cosmos, though. But again, that's all mythology. When it
Hold
comes
on.
to like what I actually believe, what I hold to know, I have no idea where the gods came from. I
Okay.
do know that the gods themselves claim genealogy. I do know that they claim to be either, the father or son or brother or sister of one another.
Well,
but
Jesus also
ultimately-
has genealogy.
yeah, Jesus does have genealogy, which also I think honestly begs the question, and we kind of touched on this the
And it's only
previous
on his
episode. The
mother's
Trinity,
side.
it's like, how is that not polytheism? And how how does one God being three
So have
people
you ever-
simultaneously
let me ask
actually
you,
makes sense?
Let me ask you this: have you ever, in the Bible, read through the Old Testament to the New Testament?
Yeah, and I answered this question with Matt earlier. No, I haven't. I haven't read the Bible fully. I've only read bits and pieces of the Old Testament. I've read most of Revelation, and I've read bits and pieces of the New
So
Testament.
if you read the Old Testament all the way through,
Yeah.
you'll get to a blank page between the Old Testament and the New Testament. It's just a white page. Do you know what?
Interesting.
Do you know what's on that white page?
What is it?
400 years of history. That white page indicates that from the Old Testament to the New Testament, there was 400 years of silence from God.
Silence from God.
God did not speak for over 400 years. And when he did speak, then comes the Messiah.
So
That's where the New Testament
So
starts.
is he currently not speaking right now? Is he going nonverbal again? Is that what's
No,
happening?
he's told us everything he needs to tell us.
Actually, so
And
I
he
used to
speaks
believe.
to us
So I used to believe
personally.
that. And I asked.
As all deities do.
I asked a pastor this once, right? I said, so it seems to me that God was more involved in the beginning and has slowly pulled away, right? And he said, actually, it's the opposite. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, well, actually, God's gotten more and more involved in our lives. And the reason is because now he sent his helper, the Holy Spirit, which lives within you. That is the helper.
So simultaneously his helper, but also himself.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
So
It's more like your helper, right? It's not
Yeah.
sure.
and his helper
But now
in the
keep
same.
in mind, our God lives outside of space and time.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
These are the reasons why I hold that the popular conception of Yahweh is either a polytheistic conception, either he is three persons, or is incoherent. Because ultimately it seems like that no matter how many times someone tries to explain this Trinity nonsense to me, you know, it never actually appears like it ever actually gets explained.
well, I can explain. So
Yeah.
I'm a son. I'm also a father,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
I have two roles there just within my family. I'm also a brother, right? I'm also an employee. I'm also a business owner. You know, I have many
Yeah.
different roles that I play.
So
right?
with that, and that one I understand, and I was hoping that you would bring that one up, because
Yeah.
that is, I feel like, the only coherent argument for the Trinity, is the many titles idea, the many titles theory. Another Christian, the only other Christian that I ever had these conversations with on the regular, that I used to work with, is a guy named Matt, oddly enough, over at
It's a sign.
honestly, at this point, I think it is a sign, because Matthew is my favorite disciple.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
He was the most knowledge. He took
yeah.
the most notes of anybody.
Yeah, Matthew was cool. But yeah, he was cool. I used to work with him up at Walmart. And yeah, he's still working over there.
Amazing where God presents himself.
But yeah, no, he explained it to me like that essentially the Trinity is, just basically a way to understand God as, as a person with many titles. He is simultaneously, a son on earth, but, he was also a father, in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, he runs errands for, and tries to save people through the Holy Spirit. And it's kind of like, I guess, different classifications and different titles for the same guy. And that I understand, because there are pagan gods that are like that. Mercury, for example, he's a god of many tasks, and he has many titles, many roles within his pantheon.
But so just so you know, the Trinity is not actually in the Bible, right?
Yeah, and I know that.
It's just a way that people explain it.
Right, which is
Right.
why I push back on it so much, is because ultimately it isn't even in there.
Yeah.
The people that would have been talking about Christianity, during the beginning, beginning, and the Jews before them, they would have never described God in that kind of way.
But Jews before wouldn't, because Jesus and the Holy Spirit didn't exist then, as far as in our timeline.
So this
right?
is something not a lot of
yeah.
people know as to why the Jewish still don't believe that Christ was the Messiah. Are you familiar with why they don't accept him as the Messiah?
Like vaguely, you explain it. Refresh me.
So going back to the 400 years where God did not speak,
Sure.
somebody rose up. His name, roughly translated, was called the Hammer.
The who?
The Hammer.
The Hammer.
He was a very strong Jew. And the Jewish saw him as, yes, when we have a Messiah, this is what the Messiah will be. Very strong, very big. And then Jesus comes into the picture, and he is the complete opposite. He is loving. He is kind.
Right.
That's why the
I think-
Jewish
Yeah.
reject Jesus as the Messiah.
And I think that honestly is why I reject the idea that Jesus and Yahweh are the same. Because I've had experience with Yahweh, and I described a little bit of that. The book in question that actually talks about Yahweh's dragon-like characteristics is Numbers in the Bible, and then the Psalms as well. All of that Old Testament, of course.
So notice you refer to God as Yahweh.
Yeah,
So can I ask, do you know what Jesus' name is?
Yeshua.
Yeshua.
Yeah. No, I knew that before, trust me. I just say Jesus because that's the colloquial, that's what everyone else calls him in the modern day. Jesus.
But do you know what Christ is translated as? From Messiah? Messiah and Christ being the same?
No, those are words I'm unfamiliar with because I don't know Hebrew that well.
So Messiah is translated into Christ
Mm.
means the
Nail in the hand.
no, it's the anointed.
The anointed, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. But ultimately, when it comes to that, with my experience, I've had personal experiences with Yahweh, and they mostly match up with what the Old Testament describes. Fiery golden serpent that, is very angry and very possessive and very jealous of all the other gods. And then I've had experiences with Yeshua, and they were very different. Very, very different. If they are the same deity, they were presenting themselves in a very different way than what they were presenting themselves before. My first interaction was with Yahweh. Just to briefly, describe the setting. I was
going to say, give us a little background on this.
just briefly describe the setting. As a pagan, I engage in trance practice and meditation.
Yeah.
This is
It's important.
I feel like probably the easiest way, at least for me, to communicate with divinity. In that moment, I actually kind of have. It's interesting. The way I do it is I kind of visualize a space for me and my deities to meet, and I kind of just hope that they show up. Ultimately it's not in my control whether they do or not. Many times they haven't. But this time they did, and this was a time in my life when I was still working with Pan. Pan is a Greek deity, a god of the woodland. He is a half goat, half man kind of thing going on. And I was working with him, and he was just like, "Hey, I need you to meet somebody." And he took me over, and and of course this is all like vision, right? But I saw this, picturesque, like very pristine looking villa, a really old looking villa too, on the side of a river. And there was a man with long hair, and he had a pure white robe, and he called himself, Yeshua, and I realized what was happening, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It's really nice to meet you. But before then, without Pan's introduction to him, without any other a deity guiding me into that area, I was also meditating, and I had a much different vision, a very different vision, where all of a sudden I was, again, this is vision space, so I was in this cave, which is where I usually kind of start out. For some reason, I always end up coming out of a cave, which is interesting to me. I don't know why. But I was just sitting in there, and then all of a sudden I felt this awe-inspiring force. It was profound, beyond anything that I had ever experienced before. Only on par with my experience with primordial deities like the earth itself, the sky itself, the universe itself, And then suddenly, I was in the clouds. It was this golden, misty, cloudy realm. And all around were these screaming, flaming serpents that were darting around faster than I could actually see. And chief among them, prime among them, was a massive, coiling serpent with this lion's face. It had a cat-like face. And it was spewing fire from its maw, and it had me in its claws. And I remember the words very clearly, what it said to me. You will submit. But then suddenly, I heard a crack of lightning. And then, in my vision, Thor suddenly appeared. He saved me. And I was pulled out of that trance state very quickly. And after that, I was shaking, I was panting, I didn't know what to do with myself, but I knew, ultimately, that whatever that was, I was safe from it.
Yeah.
Because Thor is the protector of mankind. And I believe that fully. That is what my experience has told me. That Thor, chief among deities, has the best interests of man in his heart.
And you
And
believe
that
that
he-
was
and that he is the
Yahweh
true
that he
protector.
saved you from?
Huh?
You believe that was Yahweh
Yes.
that he saved you?
100%.
What
Because
makes you believe
I've
that?
had experience with the devil too. And I'll tell you, very different vibe. Very different vibe. Not at all as
I'm not
intense,
I'm not
but
implying
also
it was the devil that
no.
was there.
Okay, then what are you
But
implying?
what I am saying is, you said that it was Pan that took you here. Well,
No. this
Pan that took me to see Yeshua. Yahweh snatched me himself. He did not give me a choice in that. That was just
Okay.
random.
because my Bible says the only way to my Father is through me. So if you don't believe in Jesus, you will not see his Father, the Father being Yahweh. So that to me says that there's another deity or something behind it trying to
Maybe.
convince you that
Well,
this is what you saw, this is what I want you to believe. That's just me. That's just from the
sure.
outside looking in.
But the
from
thing
your
is,
experience.
that could very well be the case, because my, understanding of Yahweh, primarily comes from, the Gnostic beliefs. The many different beliefs from the ancient time.
And
when Christianity
now, I'll be
was still
honest, the
getting
way
its
that
roots.
you talk about him,
Yeah.
it's very Old Testament.
Yeah. Well,
But
so
it's the same God.
So the old Gnostics, they believed that Yahweh was a demiurge that created the physical world, but that he was actually subordinate and lesser
Taking off. We love you.
Bye, and I love you.
to a much older, much more primal deity that created the non-physical, that created the spiritual realm, right?
Right.
And the Gnostics believed that Jesus was actually an emissary from that deity, from that higher deity, less so than Yahweh. They believed that Yahweh was a false god that was leading them astray and that was leading them into violence, war, depravity, which we see in the Old Testament as being, what Yahweh most excels in. Is he's a war god, very clearly. He sends
We talked
the
about that.
Israelites into countless cities to butcher, rape, and destroy, all for the sake of what Matt described at the time was sin cleansing. Which honestly, if that's cleansing sin, then Yahweh truly is a monster and has
Why?
no right to be worshipped.
It's his creation. He can
No.
do what he wants
No.
with it. Yes.
No. If a creation has consciousness, if a creation has
But
the
it's
ability
his
to think,
creation.
no.
Yes.
So, well,
You cannot murder or kill your creation. You can get rid of it.
No, see, like that
If you're
would,
the author and the
no.
artist, you can do what you want.
that would be like me saying,
he is the moral standard. Now,
No.
if you were to take me out, then you took out his creation. That's a problem. But he's the creator.
can I finish?
Go ahead.
That would be like me saying that a robot that I invented that has perfect human level consciousness, that it can think for itself, it has its own emotions, it can have a fulfilling life if I leave it alone. That would be like me brutally and mercilessly, slowly torturing it to death, all because I can. And that to me is immoral. Immoral. It is absolutely immoral.
But did you create it?
Yes, I created it.
Do what you want with it.
That's disgusting.
Well, okay. Do you have another place for that robot to go?
I could send the robot out. He could live a fulfilling life.
No. After you took it out of existence.
Well, it depends. Why did I destroy it?
Well,
Yeah,
why did you create
I think
it?
that's a good thing to think about. You know.
No, no. The thing is with that, I have no right. You're good, Mikey.
Yes.
Toss Mikey his coat, please. Give it to him.
Mikey's got the mic. I mean the coat.
Okay. So.
What was I saying?
Well. Okay. Well.
See ya.
Thank y'all so
Y'all
much.
have a good night.
You have a wonderful
Good
night.
Waterloo.
Waterloo.
I got her that answer.
Waterloo.
Other one.
Yeah.
Waterloo
It's the other one.
Containers or Waterloo,
the-
New York?
Other one.
Waterloo, the battle.
There it is. You got to turn the knob.
In New
No,
York.
The knob.
The battle.
God
No,
love you.
that was done by Napoleon.
Okay.
Yeah, that battle.
Is that why New York is named Waterloo?
I don't know.
Or there's a Waterloo, New York?
Maybe.
Could we get our bottles from Waterloo
Is that
container?
right? Yeah, they do have the.
See you, brother.
Thank y'all so
See you,
much.
Mike. What was I saying earlier? I forgot.
Talking about God being a warmonger.
Yeah.
But so
yeah.
yeah, we
Very
talked about
moral.
this too. So like, we talked about this in the back. You know.
Yo, I remember now.
Yeah.
No, Robert, that's disgusting. The idea that that I, as a creator, have the right to terminate my creation when that creation is conscious, when that creation is fully capable of determining its own destiny after I had created it, that's monstrous.
So you create
all for
something. You have a set of rules. You have a set of guidelines. You say, follow these rules. Follow these guidelines. They
Well, no,
decide
I'm
that they
not
want to. Hold on. They decide that they want to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And in order for you to gain control or to say, you know what, that's not acceptable because I created you and you decide to destroy them, that's horrible.
So you're obviously against the death sentence.
Okay. Let's clarify. When we're talking about this in a vacuum, yes, I'm against the death sentence.
Okay.
But when
We
we're
all have
talking
a death
about
sentence.
But when we're talking about, let's say we're introducing my robot creation into the world, and here's the thing, I'm not a controlling prick. I'm not going to give it rules. It can do what it wants. I'm actually going to give it free will. I'm not going to give it a guideline or anything.
That's what we have.
I'm going, yeah, sure, and I'm playing to that argument. I'm going to let it run free, and here's the thing. If it starts mass murdering people to a point where people cannot stop it, it has gathered an army. It has gathered like-minded individuals. It is running amok. It is destroying everything. It has built an empire, and it is about to conquer. It is about to lay waste to countless innocent civilizations. Then yeah, I would destroy it.
So you're describing to me the Canaanites
No,
of back then.
no, because I don't think that the Canaanites actually engaged in a lot of that evil shit that Yahweh accused them of engaging in. I think that Yahweh's standard for what is evil and what isn't is arbitrary.
Yahweh that accused them of it. It was historical accounts of it happening, right?
No.
So there's written accounts of it.
No. Who wrote the historical accounts?
It's written in many different places.
Who wrote it?
Other than in
Who
the
wrote
Old
it?
Testament.
Do the Canaanites have a book in the Bible? Do they get to share their side of the story? No.
Why?
They don't.
Because
Would
they
they?
messed up.
No. I reject this. I don't believe that the Canaanites actually did a lot of that shit. And until someone other than whatever author wrote fucking Deuteronomy can tell me,
But
no, I'm not going to believe it.
But let me point this out.
Until we find archaeological evidence of child sacrifice, I'm not going to believe they engaged in
But let me
heinous
point this
shit.
out. We're talking about the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Since the new covenant has come to be, has any of that happened?
No, because society has changed since then. we don't engage in sacrifice on a large scale at all now.
Why?
Because our society is different. Because
there's a new covenant.
Christianity was the dominant religious force
Because
in
there's a
society
new
for
covenant.
a long time.
Because
No,
there's a new covenant.
No,
That's why that hasn't happened.
like if you want to talk from your spiritual perspective, yes, but if we're talking about from a historical perspective, the only reason why we don't engage in that practice anymore is because Christianity is so dominant and is so influential in society.
Because
If
God
it
said you
wasn't-
no longer have to sacrifice animals to please me. All you have to do is accept my son. That's why. Because there's a new covenant.
Why did he make it so that you had to sacrifice animals to please him to begin with? Why was that the necessary thing? See, this is my whole thing with Yahweh, because like y'all say that he's a great God and that he's good, right, and that he is the epitome of moral goodness, but he's done all this bad stuff, and you excuse it through sin.
Wait.
Right?
He
But how does sin justify that? You know?
Wait. Why do you say he has done all this stuff? He is the creator.
He has.
He
He's
has
responsible.
set the standard.
He's responsible.
Our morals come from him.
No.
I think that's like the ultimate issue there, is we're speaking to two different sets of morals.
True. No, we're talking from two different axiomatic values, and
Yeah.
that ultimately is the issue. Yeah, and that's another thing, which I don't know if we're even going to get into it tonight. But going more political for a second, and we've talked off the mic about all this stuff too. When it comes to the gender stuff, I'll be honest. Last night I was asking myself this question. I don't know how useful it is to engage in the debate, because I know that you, Matt, in particular anyway, you don't even engage with the modern, theory on it at all. You don't even hold that gender and sex are separate.
No,
and you
not.
seem to hold that axiomatically. And so it's one of those things where I don't even know if I can reason you out of that belief, because
Okay.
I don't think that I can disprove that. Ultimately, if you hold it without justification, if you hold it to just be a fact of the world,
Yeah.
I'm not going to change your mind on that.
Well, and that goes back to like the common sense thing, right? So, but I mean, I don't have to be the expert on it, right, to know that it's real. It's reality,
But
right?
it isn't real.
There's a particular point at which you divulge from what is real, what is reality, and I think a lot of people do that, right? They divulge from reality. They live in fantasy worlds, and I think that's fine.
A lot of people live in fantasy worlds. That's true. A lot of people are lied to, unfortunately, are living in fantasy worlds without recognizing the fact that it's a fantasy.
Yes, exactly. But I would hold the whole gender ideology to that standard.
No.
Everything the Biden administration tells me is a fantasy.
I don't like Biden. No, but when it comes to gender, here's the thing, right? Gender and sex are obviously different things. Gender itself is a word that is not old. It does not have an ancient origin. It is
No,
a
not at
fairly
all.
new word.
I would say
It's a new concept.
John Money was one of the. He wasn't the first person to, come up with the idea of gender, but he was the one to really, really push it across the world, right?
Yeah.
And most people actually derive what they have today from John Money.
I don't actually know who John Money is. Was he wait,
evil
was
motherfucker.
Was he the guy that I think I know who you're talking about now? Yeah, no, he was twisted and fucking weird.
Yeah. Which is where most psychologists derive their data from, right?
Right.
Across gender ideology. That's where most of it has developed from now.
See, my whole thing is and while that may be the case, that doesn't change the fact that on the basis of the traditional gender norms, on the basis of what we traditionally understand, and that is, that gender and sex are one and the same, countless intersex people, and I know when I say intersex, y'all think, oh, but it's such a tiny amount of the population, 2%. Well, who cares? That's millions of people. That is millions of people worldwide. Millions, all right? countless decades throughout history were being mass mutilated in order to actually fit into one box or the other because of that traditional idea that sex and gender are the same.
Before we get into that,
So both ideologies have evil at the root of them, I think.
yeah. Well, so before we get into that, one thing that I think that you talk about on a level of gender is like, oh, pink means girl, right?
Right. That's
Blue
what
means boy. That was
I-
something
when
that was
I-
developed back in the 50s.
when
right?
I talk
And-
about that, I'm sorry.
and so that's like a social construct.
Sure, yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Most people relate gender to those types of things, the social construct aspect of
Masculinity,
it.
femininity.
Yeah.
And so, and you know, oh, it's only masculine to do this or that, or feminine to do this. Yeah, I agree that those are things that were given a category to women or men. Now, the color thing and stuff I think that's just bullshit. I think it's dumb.
It is dumb,
It
yeah.
was a marketing scheme,
Yeah,
right,
for sure,
back in
yeah.
the day. Just like a lot of things are marketed to us nowadays that we don't even understand where the origin of it comes from, right?
Valentine's Day.
But yeah, Jesus. Anyways, I think that in itself, I think that is a separate issue than having actual masculine traits because you are a man.
What are
right?
actual masculine traits?
So you have agreeableness, it being one of the
So women
biggest,
are not agreeable?
one of the biggest traits of a woman is agreeableness, right?
Oh, so men aren't agreeable.
Yes, on a larger scale.
Really?
Yeah. So when you take psychologists have done this test across time, right?
All right. No,
My
hold on.
wife doesn't agree with anything I say.
How do you? I was about to say.
Yeah,
There's
so in
evidence
the-
of
so-
non-agreeable women, and there's also evidence of
Exactly.
agreeable men.
Okay.
So
yeah. So,
how
hold
does
on.
that
Hold on.
define it?
That's why I like to talk in the extremes because it's important,
Right.
right? On average, 80% of people in jail are men. Why? Because they commit violent crimes, right? And I think it's actually more than 80%. There's a reason for that, right?
Yeah, and it's unfair. Like they're.
I don't think it's unfair. I
yeah,
think it's
it is.
reasonable.
No, yeah, no.
Here's why.
it's-
But here's
okay,
why.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay?
Sure.
I believe that a man with emotions like a woman ends up in prison. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a solid statement
Yeah.
because you have the aggressiveness of a man with the uncontrollableness of the emotions of a woman, right?
I just no. All right. We're talking about gender here, right? You have described my position on it as being very stereotypical. Oh, girls, they wear pink, they have long hair, they wear dress.
No, I was saying that that's a social construct that I believe
Yes.
that most people
Right.
derive this whole separate
So what
thing
is
from.
right? So what is gender? What is let's define gender real quick. Gender is the bimodal classification of aesthetics, values, roles, and expectations that are placed upon the two bimodal sexes.
That's exactly what I just said.
right. So
That's that social construct idea. I just explained
right.
that.
So where do you differentiate the two sexes, the two bimodal sexes? And when I say bimodal, I'm talking about the fact that they are on a spectrum. Yes, sex is on a spectrum. And the two bimodal genders, man and woman versus male and female. What are the differences then? Because you are admitting that there are certain things that are socially constructed. So then what of a woman isn't socially constructed?
Yeah.
Emotion versus logic.
Women-
Not true.
Yes, women
Not
are
true.
emotional.
No,
Men are logical.
There are
That has
plenty.
been proven.
There are plenty.
If you are
there
feminine
are plenty.
and you are a woman, you will be emotional. I'm not saying men can't have emotions.
There are plenty of women who engage in the hard sciences, who engage in rational debate, who
You say-
engage in logical thought.
Hold on, you
that-
say
so you,
plenty.
you cannot so you cannot essentialize it.
Yes, you can.
No, you cannot.
Look, man, look.
if
look.
exceptions
Hold on.
exist,
Hold on. We're not talking on a situational basis. We're talking across a broad scale. In egalitarian societies where they're more free to choose what they want to do, they're not suppressed, right? Which is a good portion of the world, I would say.
so who cares about the broad? At the end of the day,
No,
if there's
you do.
if there's exceptions to
matters.
it, then it doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Ultimately, you
So
cannot
you
say
say-
that all women are emotional versus all men are logical. You can't say that.
Yes, I can.
No, you cannot.
You can
Because
I
there are
can.
logical women out there, and there are emotional
There
men.
are.
Out
I'm
there.
not
You're right.
saying that women can't have logic, but overall, women are more emotional than men.
Overall doesn't matter.
Yes, it
No,
does.
if there's an exception, it doesn't mean all.
The
it doesn't mean that.
exception, the
no, it doesn't
exception
mean
is
that
the
it's a
90% of men
Tell
that
me
are
finish.
incarcerated for being emotional.
Let me finish this one. Just because there is that expectation doesn't mean that it is a universal trait.
It's
because
not
ulti-
expectations. It's nature. It's natural. We have testosterone.
No, there is no universal trait for how logical you are. There's no universal trait for that. None of the
It's
fucking
the-
shit
it's-
in your body defines that.
The hormones are completely different. That's why they're emotional and we're logical.
No, the
Yeah.
hormones,
There is
the
a-
hormones
well,
have to do with bodily
hold on.
strength first and foremost.
There are studies for this, okay? And psychiatrists have done this, right? They've gone through this plenty of times before. I cannot exactly state which studies
Yeah.
they are right now,
No,
but I can get them for you.
I've presented my studies for you about like
Yeah.
the scientific and sociological perspective on this whole gender question. But when it comes to essentialist traits like women are emotional, men are logical, you cannot rightly say that it is a universal trait because ultimately there will always be exceptions to those traits. There will always be examples
So
of exception.
here's my problem is your inconsistency with this, okay?
How is it? It's not
So
inconsistent.
you're inconsistent with deriving your statistics or deriving your overall understanding of something when it comes to evil or sinfulness of a person, like them doing wrong, just because there's exceptions, blah, 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 for this, but these exceptions don't matter. We're all, a decent person or individual. That doesn't make sense. That's a logical inconsistency.
I don't hold that we're all decent.
Okay.
As I said, we're neutral by our nature.
Okay.
It's up to outside forces to mold that kind of morality. In a vacuum, just like a feral human out in the wild, no social interaction whatsoever. They've never been fucking
So where do you
introduced to
think-
another human at all.
Wait,
they would
that
have a
I can
moral
disprove.
they would have a moral compass that is drastically different from mine.
The woman that was raised by wolves came into society and treated people with respect.
Yeah, that was an interesting story.
I think that goes to show to the biological, drive for the axiomatic values that I hold, and that is that causing harm to other people is bad, and that includes the self.
So,
I think there's a biological drive for that because I think that humans are social creatures.
But you just said somebody raised out in the wild would be evil. And I just said
I didn't
that
say
she
they would
was
be
raised by
evil. I
wolves.
said that their moral compass would be different.
I have a
What
que- I
they
have a
describe
question
as
for you.
harm would be different. Ultimately, that woman, she had to learn what was respectful.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What decides your gender?
Me. I decide that.
Okay. So no outside forces are able to influence that at all.
Outside forces are able to influence it. Outside forces are also able to inform what we think of when we think of these concepts, when we think of these genders. But ultimately, I decide what I identify with.
Okay.
I decide what I identify with, and that I decide if I want
You're
to
decide-
adhere
you're
to
dec-
these
you're
specific
decided what-
values, aesthetics,
You're
roles
de-
and traits.
You're decided what you're influenced by.
I'm deciding what I'm going to acknowledge and what I'm going to allow myself to fit within. What I'm going to allow others more so to see myself as.
Yeah. I mean, so someone once told me you're the sum total of your 5 closest friends, right? And for a reason. And I think it's a pretty honest statement. And there's actually a billionaire that I spoke with that I've sat down with 2 billionaires in my lifetime. One of them was at a, I think it was a Denny's. It wasn't IHOP. I think it was Denny's. And there was a group of us there, and we were sitting with him. And he told me that. And I was like, well, why do you think that? You know? And he said, well, every one of us is influenced by people, right?
Yeah.
We can't control the fact that we're influenced by music, by the people around us, by those things, right? Mm-hmm. What we can control is who we're influenced by.
For
right?
sure, yeah.
And I think that's extremely important. I think it's extremely important on a moral perspective. I think it's extremely important on an ideological perspective. I'm sure that if I hung out with who you hang out with, I would understand more. I don't know at this point in my life, because of, you know, where I've been, what I've experienced and everything else, that I would diverge my beliefs, so much so, right? Mm-hmm. But then you also have to say that if you were to hang out with the people that we hang out with, you might understand more of what we're saying.
No, and the thing is, I feel like I do understand, you know, where y'all are coming from, because the traditional definition of woman, as we discovered, you know, another night before while we were having a conversation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitionally, you know, the dictionary says it plain. The first definition that comes up, an adult human female. That is what what a woman is.
And it's been changed now, but
yeah, my whole thing is that we are the masters of these definitions. Definitions are not prescriptive; they are descriptive. They describe what we use these words for.
So you believe in science?
Yeah, I mean, within reason.
Defined within reason.
Like if I see, no, I'm all right. When I see just like a, just a normal, like a hypothesis or something, like I see a hypothesis on a paper, I'm gonna hold that to suspect until I read the rest of the paper, at the very least. You know what I mean?
Title reading.
And so it's one of those things where until it enters the realm of theory, I don't try to pay attention to what hypotheses are out there.
You believe in proven science?
Something has to be it has to very least have evidence for it, for me to acknowledge
proven
it.
Science is definitely going to have evidence.
Yeah.
So one thing that we understand in science is, and this is, I guess this is having to define the definition of words. Do we know him? Hold on.
Uh-oh.
What's up, brother?
Hey,
what's happening?
What's up, man?
We're in the middle of a podcast. We can keep going.
Talk, man. What's going on?
I would say something, but I don't know if I can say it on YouTube.
It's
a lot.
It's just a
mostly
a general
theological,
mishmash
but
of
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Norse paganism.
Yeah.
Right.
This
We got a
guy.
microphone up there if you want to butt in.
Hey,
Hell yeah.
I
I'm
love
down to
that
educate you,
shirt
man.
though. Naruto.
Naruto. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, man. That's awesome.
Hey, we serve alcohol here.
Yeah, man. Hey, go get yourself some mead, man. It's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic.
So. Oh heck yeah!
Oh, hell
right.
yeah, man. That's awesome.
So back to my previous question.
Yeah.
So I asked you. I believe I asked you, where does gender come from, right, or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah.
My next question is,
Where did gender come from? That's an interesting question.
what's
actually.
that?
Where does gender come from? That's an interesting question, actually.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Actually, I think
my
I was
next
talking to him.
okay. Well, I don't remember what we were talking about
I don't
though.
either because somebody walked
So-
in.
yeah, true.
My next question is: are you born thinking a particular way? because in your logic of a lot of things you've explained tonight, we're not born that way.
No.
Okay.
We're not born with a particular set of beliefs.
Okay.
No. We, develop our beliefs. I feel like from a very young.
No, not beliefs, gender-wise.
Yeah, I'm talking about gender-wise. We're talking about what we believe.
So
to be
gender is a
gender.
belief.
Yeah, I would say any social construct is a belief.
Okay.
You believe in the social construct.
Okay.
I believe social construct is a belief.
It is. Yeah.
Well, I believe
Some beliefs are right. Some
I
beliefs
remember
are wrong.
I was
Like,
asking,
that
you believe in
doesn't matter.
science, proven science.
That's right.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, though, when it comes to proven science, things like string theory are not proven science.
But no, it's not. That's what do you believe
Yeah.
in proven science?
Yeah. The thing is, though, it's not a proven science, but I do believe in string theory. So I don't necessarily.
And that's fine. You
Right.
can
well,
believe
it's the same
in,
with like
in
evolution, right?
theorems
It's
and-
not
Yeah.
proven, but
right. It's a theory.
Yeah.
But in proven
Well, no,
science,
you're
is there
using-
a debate?
You're using the wrong words though, because a theory in science is proven. That I know that doesn't make sense.
A
but
theory in science just has evidence to suggest that it might be
There's
true.
more evidence than
Okay.
not.
A law is
a
when
law,
it has proof.
yeah. Well, sort of. Yeah.
That's my understanding, anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in going through college, I thought it was the same way, but a theory is proven science, apparently. A
News to me.
hypothesis is not. A theory is,
I
and
have-
that's. Trust me,
I understand, but at the same time, there's been a theory about black holes that has just recently been. Well, I guess it makes sense because it's recently been disproven.
Well, no, black holes have been disproven. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
No, we literally have photographic evidence of them. Are you kidding me?
They have been no, not
no,
about.
we have
they
photographic evidence
no,
of
no,
black
no, no.
holes.
Not
What
that
are
they
you talking
exist.
about?
Not about them
Hold on.
existing,
That's
but
not
about
he's saying.
what they are.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
About the construct of them.
Oh, sure. Okay, so
Yes.
what's the new theory about what they are then?
Well, have you not heard?
No,
So we
I
thought
don't
they
know.
sucked everything in, right? They're just
Yeah. It was like concentrated,
Gravity.
Dense.
Yeah,
yeah.
Very
It was a
dense.
collapsed star, and it sucked
right.
everything
Yes,
in.
yes.
in the Urantia book, it's actually where God is.
Oh, is that right?
It's paradise.
That's funny.
So that's
Because he gets spaghettified if you fall in there.
that's not what they believe a black hole
Well, it's
is
where
anymore.
time and space doesn't exist. So
Right.
Light can't even escape it. That's why it's black.
That's what they say, but apparently light can. That's a part of it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Whoa.
They have seen light escaping black holes.
That's
with the new
insane.
telescope they got up
Yes.
there. Oh, what is it called? I forget what it's called.
Timothy.
something. No, it's
Frank.
Not. It's not
I
Timothy.
don't know. It's
What the
some
fuck
fucking
is
lie.
that?
Who knows? Who fucking
It's like
knows?
Helicon
Yeah, I
something.
know.
I don't remember
What the
it's
like the
called.
new
Look, the
new
Tubble's
telescope.
dead.
new
Okay.
telescope?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the James Webb telescope.
Webb. Webb.
See,
That's
I was
what it
getting
is.
the names.
Webb.
I was getting there.
Yeah,
The Webb.
getting there.
Do what? I
You
can't
gotta
hear you. You don't have the microphone.
Yeah, it's true. You don't have a microphone.
Yeah, I did that on purpose.
Well, do you know why? Because it was done over at Southern Research.
Yeah, so now that you can hear me, because
I
I
can.
realized I was in Boston, I
So
apologize.
Yeah, I know.
I know. You
But
got to
I
come
have
back
a
down to
friend
Alabama.
who helped develop that telescope, and he sent me some pretty cool documentation and research behind it and what they've done and what they've seen since the
pretty
first
awesome.
images came back.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
hell
pretty
yeah, man,
crazy.
That's sweet.
Yep. He's a physicist gone Subway owner.
Yeah.
True story.
Hell
So what? So what's really?
Yeah.
Well, what's yeah?
Everybody loves to eat fresh.
Listen, gig economy, man. You take what you can get.
But the cool.
Hello, hello.
Yes. So the cool part about it is, are you coming tomorrow?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, awesome.
She's just
So-
getting some
We
stuff
got
here,
an
getting
event
ready.
tomorrow.
I don't know if you
You're
met her
early.
yet. That's our bar manager, Susan. She'll be here
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah, you're here early. That's great.
Really early, yeah. Like
So-
14 hours early.
Well, yeah. So some of the cool parts that have come out with the James Webb Telescope is the revelation that a lot of the supposed stars that we thought or things that we couldn't even see are actually galaxies within themselves.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
is wild.
Yeah, no, and that was something I did hear about was that the universe is actually far larger than we gave it credit for.
Yeah.
Far larger than we gave it credit for. Which I mean honestly, what I think is cool is the possibility of discovering even older and older super like giant objects in space,
Yeah.
Because we've discovered some of the oldest stars, and they are the brightest and largest stars that have ever existed. And of course, nowadays they're probably fizzled out, but who knows? Like,
Just so you know, there's a wireless mic up there if you want to interject at any point.
yeah, man.
Just letting you know.
Anytime.
I know you're just listening, but
Right?
I'm letting you know
He's
forethought.
like, look, I got to get 4 meads in before I can even talk.
Well, there you
There
go.
you go. Hey.
What is this one compared to those? Ah, sweet.
Hell yeah, man.
We got a much
You're not
better.
you're not
that is-
saying that because I have a beard, are you? Okay, just checking.
It's even better.
It's even better, man.
Awesome. This is
Yep.
yeah. Well, we got an easy recipe.
Absolutely, yeah. Pretty easy. There you go. There you go. There you go. Right,
There you
yeah,
go.
Exactly. Yeah. When the last Methuselah star is gone.
Yes. Methuselah,
Yeah, that's
the
what
longest lived person in the world.
That's what they're called. Yeah, because of that story. Yeah.
Yeah, like 969
969
years.
Yeah,
or
that's
something
another
like that.
thing why it's like, Christians who are mythic literalists. You actually
Yeah.
believe that was a guy who was over 900?
I don't know, but maybe.
Do you believe in freaking people that incest? What are you talking about?
Yeah, again, mythic literalist.
I'm not saying it.
Not a
Well,
mythic
well,
literalist.
hold on.
Might
I
be
mean,
what the myth says, but
there we go.
up there
It's
at
right
the
back
bar,
there.
man. Up there at the bar.
She's got
Susan's
it.
got it.
She's got it. I hope so.
So we're talking about literalists. You have Adam, Eve, they procreated.
Yeah.
And they lived for 900 years. The next one lived
Oh, I know what you're-
900 years.
I know what you're about to say.
Incest,
Where do
yeah.
you think the Neanderthals came from?
Okay.
Through incest,
That was not
you
what I was
have
expecting.
brain deficiencies, you have other deformations or malformations.
It's a cool idea, but we know that Neanderthals were a separate species.
Oh, no, it absolutely was,
Yeah.
but let me have my fun.
Yeah.
But hold on. It does say that Adam and Eve were the first, but it did not say they were only created in the beginning.
That is true.
That's not biblically accurate.
Where?
It says very clearly that there was Adam and then there was Eve.
And did it say there was
anyone
nobody else?
It didn't say there was anybody else.
But
so you
did it
can't-
say there was no one else?
Yeah, you can't assume. Why are you assuming?
Why are you
Why
assuming?
are you assuming
If
the
I'm
word
assuming,
of God?
you're assuming.
You're the one.
I mean,
assuming
you're
it.
both assuming. I'm
Right?
just going to
Yeah.
throw that out there.
But it's fair.
It's a fair question on both sides.
Atheists assume that God doesn't exist.
They assume it. Yeah.
So I think it's fair.
True. No. But ultimately, I get to circle back actually on, on paganism, the topic at hand.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we've gone through a lot of different
course,
topics, which
of
is really
course.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. Which I love going over all this different stuff, But
Can I ask you questions about your
yeah,
your
please.
paganism?
Let's.
So you
lightning
mentioned
round
something about like of an altar, and then this time you mentioned
Ooh,
that you
yeah.
like to meditate, right?
It. Yeah, I actually have a picture of my altar. I can
You have
show
a picture of your altar.
I can
Send
show
it to me, and I can
can
put
send
it over the video so people can see
Yeah,
it. Right?
I'll do
If
that.
that's cool.
Yeah.
But
I do want to see it before you leave, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
do want to
sure.
see it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So you have an alt. What does that entail? How do you? Because this is the first time. So I've had people tell me
Like
they're-
chicken bones, voodoo dolls.
No, hold
Yeah,
on.
no, I bring goats into my room almost every Friday.
Okay.
Okay.
So
It's starting to add up. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
and I think it was a yearly thing, but anyways, so for gosh dang it, you guys really messed me up here. I had something that I was going with, but how does that look? Because I've met people
Yeah.
that and I've been on that side of things. Now I haven't been as involved as you, right? Obviously.
Right. And you've told me a little bit about that.
Yeah.
That you used to work
Well,
with Druidic practice.
Yeah, and so I've studied a lot,
For
right?
sure.
Trying to figure out where I belonged, trying to figure out what I believed. I used to meditate, man, and I'm going to tell you a story. about
Yeah,
my
please.
meditation practices because I've astrally projected, right?
Yeah, which
I've done.
what
I'd studied the John Silva method.
what I was describing with my visions with Yahweh and Yeshua,
Yeah.
that was astral projection.
Yeah, of course.
I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to sound like a loon, but
No,
yeah.
astral projection's totally real, right?
Wait,
And I-
wait. You think that's what's going to make you sound like a loon?
Yeah, I know, right?
No, but you know, and so I've meditated and I've gotten to the point, you know, I'm nowhere near as evolved in my practice as I
Right.
used to be, right? But you know, I remember at a point in time where I was able to expand my consciousness enough to feel every single person on the earth.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's very cool. I was able to expand. It was like a bubble, and it just increased from me outward to where I was. And this was when I was fasting.
Look, I
as
think
well,
y'all have
right?
just tripped balls like a motherfucker. That's all I think.
Trust me, we'll get into drugs on another podcast, but
Look,
that
I
we have
know-
that as a subject.
Hey,
but I'm
listen,
saving that
We
for
can do
when you're not
DMT,
here.
HGH, I mean,
Shamanic mushroom practice is valid.
see,
spiritual
Matt thinks because I
practice.
don't talk about a lot of things, discuss things with him that I don't know about a lot of things.
I'm just saving that for when you have a day out and I can talk about that because I can talk all day about that.
Well, I know we've kind of had a
Yeah,
situation. Well, I've been talking too much. I'm gonna have to shut up now.
but so what is that? You know, what does that look like for you? Because I know what it looked like for
Yeah.
me, and I didn't, as obviously I didn't go as far as you, but I did study it. I studied, and last time, you know, you made a comment. Well, you studied it. And I'm like, well, yeah, you've studied it too, and that's why you know about it. But I also study the Bible now, right? So,
Right.
so study, I think, is an important practice in your
Absolutely.
belief system, right?
Yeah.
If you don't study it, how do you know about it? But you know, there's the experiential part of it, which we talked about. So, what does it look like for you on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis?
For sure.
I want to know what that looks like.
Yeah. So heathen practice is marginally different from like the rest of pagan practice. A lot of pagans agree on a lot of the same stuff. We agree that the gift giving cycle with divinity is important. We agree that experience, that unverified personal gnosis is important to personal practice, and we also, if we're Reconstructionists, which I more so am a revivalist than a Reconstructionist, but Reconstructionists usually hold that, studying the academic sources and that making sure that your experiences are lining up with the verified and shared personal gnosis of other pagans, that's important as well, Eclectics, meanwhile, those will be more often than not more so like Wiccans. They don't necessarily hold that it is as important to make sure everything lines up 100% with myth.
They're more naturalist.
Right,
Happy
right.
solstice too. That's coming up. 11 days on
Yeah.
the 21st. Happy solstice.
I got off on that. Yeah, I forgot to mention at the beginning. Happy Yulamanath. Yeah. If we're talking about my personal practice, heathens, we do believe in, many different holidays. We celebrate many different holidays.
Gesundheit.
Right. Yule is one of those holidays. It is probably the most important holiday.
Every Thursday?
No, not every Thursday. Thursday is something that I personally, try to keep holy.
Okay.
Right. So we're talking about Yule. Yule is essentially pagan Christmas. Other pagans celebrate it. Heathens chiefly celebrate it. It is a very popular holiday among heathens.
Yuletide carols.
Yes, exactly. The holiday is all about, staving off winter depression, making sure that, we remember that the spring is about to return. The longest night has passed us.
Life
we can
begins anew.
Right, we can celebrate the coming of the sun. We can celebrate soul. We can celebrate, this giving season, this season of hospitality, and generally it's just an excuse to get out in the snow and drink and eat some really nice food.
It's a great excuse.
Right? But ultimately, when it comes to like weekly and daily practice, heathens try, when it comes to like practice with divinity, we try to just remember the gift-giving cycle. So generally, when it comes to like heathen ethics, we believe that a gift calls for a gift. I think it's a gift that I get to work here, and so the gift that I give in return is showing up on time when I can, which is every time.
Properly
almost.
accepted.
Except for one time.
Except for literally one time. Literally one time.
What are you doing with your life?
I know, right? Yeah. Showing up on time and being dutiful. That's I feel like
That's a
gift,
law of reciprocity.
right? Reciprocity.
Yeah.
Yes, reciprocity is very important to.
It's important
pagan
marketing
practice.
as well.
Absolutely.
That's how Buddhist has become a very large religion.
Mm-hmm.
Is the law of reciprocity. I'll explain that in a minute, but
Yeah. But generally, when it comes to gift giving, I'm okay. When it comes to gift giving, this is
water or anything.
I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah. This is what we talk about when Christians think of sacrifice.
Yeah.
But for heathens, it's not anything to do with like blood or the sacredness of giving something away or something like that. It's more so just about fostering the relationship with the divinity. In ancient times,
That's what it's about with Christianity
right?
too.
In ancient times, for ancient peoples, this reciprocity did take the form of animal. And yes, I will concede to this. The historical evidence is there. Human sacrifice. It existed among ancient heathens, and it existed among a lot of other ancient cultures too that you might not think of. The Greeks had human sacrifice if you go back far enough.
Yep.
But generally, the practice of animal sacrifice, I feel like it was and is still kind of confused. I feel like people don't really understand it. When someone is giving the gift of cattle or the gift of a goat to a deity, you're giving away the potential that animal had.
Well, it's also not just a animal; it is the animal. It's the best of your flock. It's the best of, right?
Yeah, because
and people who don't have farms don't understand that, right?
Right.
Because I have worked on many farms, and I've tried to start my own farm, but I've got the cops calling me a bunch of times. That's another story. But I've worked on, as a permaculturalist. I'm a certified permaculture designer, right? So I help people develop sustainable living situations, right? The best of is very important. I have a dear friend of mine right now who's in Pelham, has an awesome farm. He has chickens that are virtually disease resistant to every kind of disease. Free range, they do what they want, they reproduce, but then when he wants to get the eggs, he can,
It's pretty cool.
It's really cool. The chicks run around with the flock, they're protected.
Love chickens.
It's pretty wild, But he also has quail, he has pigs, he has all these things. So the best of that is extremely important.
We still going, Robert? I noticed you checking those. We still going?
We're good.
Okay, good.
But yeah, it's the best of that's extremely important, I believe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the principle behind that from the pagan perspective is just, let's talk about just giving away an animal to like a friend, right? You're not going to give them your lame horse. Why would you do that? That's very, inconsiderate. Why would you burden them with that? Likewise, you're not going to give the gods a lame horse. You're going to give them the best possible horse you can give them.
Yeah.
And with that said, what you're actually giving, though, when you're engaging in animal sacrifice in the ancient times, you're giving away the potentiality of that animal. You're giving away the work that animal could have done. You're giving away the children that animal could have had, the babies that it could have had.
The milk that it could have produced.
The milk that it
the
could have
meat
produced.
that it could have produced.
Exactly.
The future generations the genealogy that it could have produced.
Yes. Yeah, but the thing is, also, it is important to, when you're giving away animals and you're going to do an animal sacrifice, to not disrespect the life that creature had, because ultimately, these creatures have, at least, from my perspective, they have personhood.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to be wasting that meat. every single time when we're talking about animal sacrifice, what we're really talking about is a good old-fashioned barbecue.
Okay, so this begs the question, right? So why don't people practice that now? What changed in the
Right.
heathen world
So
where they don't practice that now?
See you, brother.
See ya.
Love you, brother.
So the whole thing, why we don't practice it now, and which you can't really say that because heathens that have their own private farms, that know their animals very well and that personally make sure they take good care of them, usually they will engage in human Freudian slip there.
Yeah.
Thinking about Odin. No.
Slow down, Biden.
They will engage in animal sacrifice. But
I'm calling PETA.
that's just a matter of, if they can do it. Ultimately, though, the reason why most heathens, if not all heathens, don't, and again, I don't know any heathens that personally engage in animal sacrifice. I just have heard stories of heathens that owned farms that would do that.
Yeah.
The reason why we don't do it now, though, is because most heathens don't own that kind of property. We also understand that it is, at this point, socially taboo.
Yeah. So I can point to a time in history why Christianity doesn't do it, right?
Yeah. Well, I know from y'all's theology, there's a reason. It's because Jesus was the final,
The ultimate
sacrifice.
Yeah,
of course.
right.
For pagans, there is no need for a savior. We weren't giving our God sacrifices because he was mad at us. We were giving our gods sacrifices because we wanted to build that relationship with them, and we wanted to foster good bonds.
That was the point of the other sacrifices too, in the Jewish tradition, right?
Well, no, it was to appease him. It was more so like placation.
No, it's for the relationship. The same way that you submit to Jesus, you would submit your best of the best to God, right? It's the same cleansing ritual, right?
Cleansing ritual, I guess. It's more so just the gift-giving ritual. The cleansing comes before, usually.
Yes, it comes before in the Jewish tradition as well.
Right. So, so if we're talking about like the structure of like a heathen prayer, usually, the giving of offering will happen somewhere near the end. You start with cleansing yourself and making sure that you are, fit and ready to, be witness to the divine.
Yeah, that was like the whole setup of the Temple of Moses, right? So there were 7 stages, right?
Yeah.
And it was all about cleansing yourself all the way and becoming clean, even with your neighbors, right? So if you had a quarrel going on with your neighbors, you had to become clean before you could give that sacrifice.
Right.
Right. So it was all about becoming clean before you did that to develop that relationship. It's the same.
And let's look at the reason why. Why would someone want to make sure that they are clean before giving an offering to a divinity? It's the same reason why you want to make sure you're not fucking stank. When you have guests over at your house.
Yeah, or walking into work
exactly
smelling like shit. Or,
yeah, exactly. It's about dignity and self-respect ultimately.
You shouldn't take part of an act of reverence in poor condition of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
I like this guy.
yeah, me too.
You show up to more Mead Talks, man.
Right. It's every Sunday.
Every Sunday night.
Sunday night. Hey! Got another reoccurring guy. Let's go. No, but oh fuck, I lost it. Oh shit.
I don't think you ever had it.
Oh, come on, Robert. No. Right. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it's the same principle as just making sure that you ain't going into someone's house, smelling like butt, right?
Yeah.
And that goes for how you engage with the prayer itself as well. You want to be polite. You want to be cordial. You're not trying to be demanding. Ultimately, you're giving this gift because you want to foster the relationship. Whether the divinity gives a gift in return, that's up to them. That's up to them to engage in that cycle of reciprocity, right?
Yeah.
You give the gift, and you may ask for something in return, but you always specify that you're not giving this gift with this expectation.
So I have a question off of that. What is your reason for prayer?
Prayer, I feel like, ultimately is just a way to foster bonds with the divine. And I feel like fostering bonds with the divine is important because I feel like it enriches your life in a way that you can't really find through other material means.
There you go. I mean, I believe the same thing, right? So
Yeah.
I believe that prayer is it's not a grocery list that you give to God, saying, you know, I need this, I need this, I need this. Can you give it to me? If you answer that one thing, yeah, that'd be great, awesome, cool.
Which, real quick, I do want to say, and I know you two probably aren't like this, I will say, though, with most Christians that I meet, it does seem like that is kind of what prayer is to them. That it is a wish list that you give to your deity.
Yeah, but that's not Christianity, right? So,
Right.
like, a prayer is actually meant to foster a relationship. It's a time that you can actually speak with God, right? And it's a time where you can align your will with His, right? And so, and through prayer, you don't expect to get anything back. Through prayer, you expect your heart to change to do the will of God. That is the whole purpose of prayer.
And that's
Separate
a
concept
distinction.
as well.
What?
You go ahead, but I also have a separate concept that aligns very well with what
Yeah.
you just said. I do not know your name for Adam. Excuse me,
Matt.
Matt. I have a separate concept that fits well along with what Matt was saying. But please, I interrupted you.
Yeah, so it's okay. No, I forgot. Go ahead.
The concept of thelema.
Of what?
Thelema.
Thelema?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I mentioned that earlier. Yeah, Aleister Crowley, Thelema. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was actually not the founder.
Oh, was he not?
No. Actually, through his esoteric works and his studies, he walked backwards into it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
the last name was Yeats. I can't remember the first name. But there were people who were genuinely frustrated with Crowley because they thought somebody leaked their secrets to him because they behaved somewhat similarly in vein to Freemasonry, where their rituals, things like that, were kept secret.
Yeah.
And then they found out that he just kind of walked backwards into their principles. He also got into a wizard duel, which is also silly and hilarious in its own vein.
Sounds like Harry Potter.
Yeah,
Aleister Crowley is like literally
much less excited. Much less excited. But the concept of thelema is actually fascinating. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will. So what it does is it separates.
That's contradicting.
It is. But what it does is it separates the will of you as a human, as a man walking this earth, and what they refer to as,
You are your own God.
but what they refer to as true will. Because also in a similar vein to Freemasonry, it is not adherent to any specific religion.
So they don't understand the concept of free will. That's their problem.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It-
Freemasonry is weird.
It is. That I will not dispute.
I don't know if you're a Freemason or not.
I am. It is. Yes and no. But
Yeah.
the fun vein of
do you go to the lodge that's behind the Y?
yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. That's awesome.
But the interesting thing though is you could tie it in with any belief system, thelema, because you have what you would have as your human will as a man, your own free will as pagan, Christian, whatever religion you gentlemen follow,
Well, I don't believe in free will, but
and then you have your true will, which from a Christian perspective, I grew up Christian, I'm a deist now, but you would have the will, God's will, or the will of Christ. That would be known as your true will. And if you live your life in accordance with God's will, life seems to
Go
not
easier.
not be easy, because life is never easy, but
No.
it seems to unfold and make sense.
Yes. Yeah.
If
Exactly.
you live in accordance to your faith.
Yeah. Mhm.
So you have your own free will as a man, but you should live in accordance to what that true will dictates.
Yes.
But it's one and the same.
I
Your
agree
free
with
will as
you.
man is your free will in Christ. It's your choice. That's what free will is.
No, I agree with
have
you.
that choice.
No, I
That is
agree.
true free will.
I just think the concept of
So you're
thought that the Thelema brings about is interesting.
yeah. So you're talking about like an objective free will or a subjective
Subjective,
free will.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
They
remember what
separate
I
the
was going
two.
to say now.
Go.
So when we're talking about like the reason why we pray, like I don't hold that it is, an aim to more perfectly align oneself with the will of a particular divinity. Ultimately, you align yourself with a divinity because you are dedicating yourself to that divinity, in that way. That is a marker of the, I guess, intensity of the relationship, But ultimately, that's not inherent. You don't have to do that in order to pray to a deity. I feel like you can give a gift, unwarranted completely, just out of the blue. Just be like, hey, Balder, I've never talked to you before, but man, you're so cool. You're a god of light. I love you. Let's get you a little incense going.
See,
and ultimately, I don't need to submit to Balder's will to give that gift. And Balder doesn't need to, try to push me into submitting to his will in order to give me a gift in return.
There's no deity pushing me into submission. It's my own free will. When I pray, when I pray to God and I say, "Thy will be done," that is my choice. That is me saying, I want you to use me in the way you have created me to be used.
And if you have that kind of relationship with your God, and those are the things that you believe of your God, then that's totally valid and fine.
And that's me getting closer to God. That's
but
the way saying that you have control over the life that you created in me. It's thy will be done. The breath in my lungs.
But that doesn't mean that my reasons for praying
I understand.
are invalid.
I'm just I'm not disputing anything that you said. I'm just saying that we have a difference of reasoning for praying. Yours is, hey bro, what's up? I haven't talked to you. Nice to meet you, but I haven't met you, but I want to. But is that cool? Like,
no,
no. Mine is strictly, in order for me to draw closer to you, thy will be done. I want you to use me in the way you created me to be used. Whatever.
That's a difference in approaching deity, when it comes to creators. Like if I believe that Thor literally created me, I would approach him a lot differently than how I approach him. But ultimately, I don't really work with, a creator god. Those aren't the gods that I concern myself with.
Right.
So
you just deal with the ancestral ones.
Yeah, for some reason.
Got him.
Right? Yeah. No, oddly enough, actually, Freyr and Freya do not have a place on my altar. Not anymore, anyway. They used to, but...
Okay, so wait, let's go back to the altar thing, because you
the
didn't really
altar.
explain that.
Yeah. So, we're engaging in prayer. You do that at the altar, right? The altar, much like the temple, much like the church, much like, whatever the fuck, the mosque, it is
Just not to be confused with Christianity, I don't have an altar I pray at. I pray
you go to church, do you?
Church is not an altar.
No, church is not an altar.
We're getting to that. Hold on. But you go to church, right?
I do go to church, but that's only to congregate with fellow Christians.
Yes. The altar is a sacred space.
I don't have one of those.
Is the church not a sacred space?
No, not really. But
it's created by man.
But let him finish. I really want to hear about his altar.
Okay, let's
and
go
then
ahead.
I want to explain to him what was explained in the Bible about that. But
Yes.
go.
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about Christians have churches, Muslims have mosques, Jewish people have synagogues, other religions have temples. Either way, these are all sacred spaces, holy spaces where you go to commune with the divine, right? The altar is essentially all of that bundled up into a little, at-home package, right?
Yeah.
So it's a tiny home.
Sure. So because heathens do not have as wide of a reach as other religions do, we don't usually get to engage in group practice as often as we would like to. And so therefore, most heathens will have a home altar. There are some heathens, though, that live, like, let's say in Atlanta, where there is a very, powerful and very progressive kindred, that's run by some pretty cool YouTubers, Wolf the Red and Ocean Keltoy. And those people, they might not have an altar. I'm sure there are probably some of them that don't have an altar, and they only really engage in, practice with the gods in a group setting. And that's totally valid and fine to do as well. But ultimately, the reason why we have an altar is because of utility, because we do not have that ease of access to a group setting like other religions do. What is on the altar, usually, it would be what most Christians would describe as idols.
Yeah.
For heathens, that is not necessarily the case. Most heathens, actually, I would say, do not have idols on their altar. The ones that do, oftentimes, are American, first of all, and are outliers to what, like, the global heathen, practice usually entails.
I just pictured a photo of Simon Cowell on an altar. I had to.
So,
but I do have idols. I have little plaques that feature images of the deities, and that is primarily, another form of gift giving. I am honoring the deities by depicting their likeness in the best way that I can, and placing that upon the altar as a gift to them, to show them that I care about them, and I want them to be witness to the rituals that I do there. The rituals being, of course, gift giving, other forms of gift giving, be it incense, libation, or offerings of foodstuffs. Like grain. I give a lot of grain.
yeah,
Yeah. Like oatmeal and
all
stuff.
that gluten.
Yeah, they like
Except for oatmeal. Oatmeal doesn't have gluten in it.
Well, yeah, true. That's right. You're right.
But okay, so I wanted to ask. It took us a long time to get to what your altar looks like. And
I
what
know,
that-
right?
yeah.
It's crazy.
But it makes sense. There's a lot of questions there. The Bible explains, and Jesus actually explains that, you shouldn't stand on a corner and pray and preach and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And actually, it's better to go into your home, into a closet, and
Close your door.
close your door and pray, right?
In private.
In
Yeah.
private, yeah.
All these street preachers are doing it wrong.
Yeah, they are. I wholly believe in that, right?
Yeah.
I think some good comes of it.
The Westboro people are definitely doing it
I
wrong.
believe there's a difference. I believe there's a difference in discipleship and what you're talking about.
You mean
This is a
you mean-
directional mic, right? It's not like your old mic.
I
where
heard
you-
myself just
you
fine.
talk straight into it.
Maybe because the speaker's right there, but I heard myself just
You're
fine.
coming through. I'm just saying, it's
Yeah.
different than your old.
But Robert, do you mean disciple, or do you mean evangelist, like someone that's spreading the word? Because that's not necessarily the same thing. An evangelist is someone who
not, yeah.
spreads the word. A disciple was someone who followed Jesus.
Well, an
personally.
evangelist is
Personally,
somebody
yeah.
that goes into lands that have never heard the name of Jesus Christ. But when they're standing on a street corner in America, everybody knows who that is. That's discipleship. There is a difference.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
well, they've
Semantics.
been taught by somebody, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we're two disciples, right?
Sure. You and Robert.
Yeah, specifically.
Yeah. I would agree to that.
And yeah, you're to that is solely the work of a Christian, is to spread the word, for sure.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about this last
Right.
night.
Yeah.
But and I told you, I said, well, and you said, well, you seem to not care what I believe and blah blah and all that stuff. And I'm like,
True,
yeah,
which is an interesting question. And that's something I did want to posit on the podcast as well. And there's just the question of why. I'm good. Why do you two, as Christians, don't try to proselytize me as aggressively as some other Christians might?
Well, I wouldn't. I would never try to, right?
Right.
Because I told you, because you're uninterested, right?
Right, which is your perspective. Yeah, I'm actually very interested in the truth of Christianity. If it is true, I want to know.
Yeah, and so one question I would have for you then is, if Christianity was true, would you be a Christian?
See, that's a different question.
It's not a different question. It's very relative.
No, it's
Well,
relevant, but it's
even if it
different.
were too,
Right.
just because, hypothetically speaking, again, I'm a deist,
Yeah.
no particular
Like the
faith,
founding fathers, by the way. That's based as fuck. Deism, I like that.
but just because you're not a Christian,
Right.
if Christianity were absolute truth, what if God's plan was for you to be yourself and your faith all along anyways?
Exactly.
Because just because you do not follow in that particular faith doesn't mean the truth you speak or
Well,
the
then-
kindness you share with the world
well, then-
is inherently wrong.
Well, then we get into the idea of, like, I believe the Methodists hold to this, you know, the idea of reprobates, of a people that are designed, you know, to be sinners and to work against God.
Yeah.
Literally, like, purposely, like, I'm placing the black pawns on the opposite
So
side
I
of the
would
board.
I would say those people are necessary, right? Just
So wait, you believe in that?
sort of, right? I wouldn't. So I don't believe that Methodists are Christians, right? So, and here's why. Well, okay, so I would say that they have the same core beliefs, but they added on to, right? A lot of the different denominations, you know, they latch onto one idea and they add on to, right? Christianity is not meant to be added onto. It's meant to be raw. Or like, it's meant to be the relationship that you have with Christ. It's nothing more, nothing less, right?
So Baptists believe you shouldn't drink.
So why? So wait, hold on, wait. Just, Baptist believing whatever. I don't care about
Okay,
Baptists.
but what's your question?
But
Well, we're talking about denominations as to how they add on.
And I have. Can I? Because
Yeah.
I know what you're going to ask. So the reason I believe that it's necessary is because it's prophesied, right? It's prophesied that people won't believe.
that wasn't
Right.
what I was going to ask.
Okay.
I was going to ask, why is it that the Methodists are wrong, and why can't a Christian, through their experience, through their personal relationship with Christ, you know, see an evolution? You know, is it impossible for God to give someone a revelation and for that to change the entire, you know, perspective of how we see the Bible? Basically, what I'm asking is, was Pelagius wrong? And why was he wrong, if so?
Who's Pelagius?
Pelagius was a Celtic Christian in the Middle Ages who argued against the Catholic Church. His beliefs were considered heretical by the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Who posited the idea of a what do you call a sin when you're born with sin? Of like natural sin or something like that.
Or the origin or
Original sin?
Original sin. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So instead of original sin, he thought of original blessing. Of essentially that God, you know, created us with original blessing instead of original sin.
So that's not so far from the truth, right?
Mhm.
Yes, that was initially what we were supposed to be created for, but we chose otherwise. And the original sin comes afterwards, right?
See, Pelagius believed in the good of God. He
Yeah, me too.
believed that God would not take away that blessing for the crime of one woman and one man.
Can we just
Okay.
note that man was given the option to be ruled by God or to be ruled by man? That's
Yeah.
biblical.
Well, a lot of this also
Okay.
just traces back to Martin Luther, the Enlightenment, hell, even during the eras of the Black Plague. The Christian faith, especially Catholicism, evolved rapidly
Yeah.
during the centuries of the plague.
But Catholicism and Christianity are two completely different things that should never be mixed together, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But in the same vein, they are somewhat one and the same,
They
but
are
I
not.
also agree
They are
with you as
completely
well.
different.
No.
In the words of Ben Shapiro, facts don't care about your feelings.
Exactly. That's what I love about that.
Ultimately, Catholics consider themselves to be Christian. They identify
Yes.
as Christian, and so therefore, I'm going to call them Christian. I don't know about
And
y'all.
that's fine.
I'm gonna
but
call
their
them
feelings are not facts, and
Yes.
that's the issue,
Right.
right?
No, it's not. It's not about their. It is a fact that they identify as Christian.
Yeah,
What-
but it's their feeling that they identify as it.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does.
Exactly. That's what we're saying.
That part, no, that part of the equation just doesn't matter. That's null.
Okay, yes, their feelings don't matter. What
We
they are
agree.
is what
No,
matters.
I'm saying that I'm going to respect anyone's identity of what they say they are. If you say you're a Christian, then you're a Christian. Whether you're a good Christian or a bad Christian, that's a different question.
Okay, well,
That's
let's
fine. You can, but I
this
don't.
Is this
I
is
don't-
why
care
I
what
don't
you do.
like.
Yeah, you do what you want.
This is why I don't like the word Christianity anymore. Right? Is because it's.
Ooh.
I don't like it. Right?
Yeah,
And
she
It's
was
watered
sobbed.
down, extremely watered down.
It's extremely watered down, and it's been given this. Everybody looks at it in a negative light because
You're a
everybody
Christian.
claims
Didn't
to
you
be a
kill
Christian.
thousands of people during the Spanish Inquisition?
Yeah.
That wasn't
No.
Christianity.
Yeah.
That was Catholicism.
First of all,
That's historically accurate.
yes, and
100%. I can't say anything about that.
yeah,
Okay.
but
Look,
like
to all of our Catholic listeners, I just want to say this: fuck you, seriously, fuck you for the Northern Crusades. I hate you all. Thanks.
That's fine.
that's his
Perfectly valid.
opinion. I don't hate anybody. I love you as you are, and I hope that you come to Christianity.
That
The
is his
Palmer
opinion.
Freemasonry is a band, though.
Eat a dick if you're a Catholic. Stop touching kids if you're a Catholic. Stop doing it.
I mean, yeah, I agree. All that is bad, right?
That is a general consensus by his opinion, but
yeah. You're going on the
it's a
extremes
general
there.
consensus that Catholics are chomos.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You're going on the extremes there, and extremes don't matter. Exceptions don't matter.
extremes
Exceptions do
matter,
not
do
matter.
they?
Exceptions.
You literally said they
I'm
did
going.
earlier.
No, I'm using your theology.
Oh, okay.
Exceptions do not matter in any circumstance.
Wait, that's not
An
my
extreme is not
theology.
an exception, though.
Okay.
There's
What
an
do you say
exception to the
by
rule,
that?
but an extreme is not an exception.
What?
I would argue there is always an exception to the rule, but an extreme does not necessarily make you the exception.
Thank you.
I agree with that.
Thank
no, I
you.
agree with that.
wait, how can
Yeah.
you both agree but you both disagree?
Exactly.
Go.
No, I'm curious about what you
Welcome
meant
to
by that.
America.
What do you
Well,
mean? What do you
okay.
mean that was my theology?
Well, before we were talking about, I said that extremes matter,
Yeah.
but you said, well, there's an exception to that, so it doesn't matter.
No, when it comes to certain topics, it depends on what you're talking
No,
about.
you can't.
Hey,
You
you
can't
got-
have
whoa, 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 whoa,
inconsistencies
whoa,
there.
yeah.
Though you can't have logical inconsist. I mean, you can.
It's not a logical inconsistency.
It is.
Okay.
No,
I
it
mean,
isn't.
you can think that it isn't all day long, but it still is a
A
logical.
rabbit
isn't,
bumps
though.
his butt every time he jumps, and a toad bumps his butt every time he jumps, but it's okay for the rabbit to bump his butt, but not the toad. Why?
It's a double standard.
Exactly.
Wait, that's not what I said.
And actually,
You don't have to
I
say
w-
it.
I just want to throw this out there. I
Not
would
my
like.
belief.
I would like to be a frog, or be like a frog, right?
What?
Not to be a frog, but to be like a frog, right? Do you know why?
Yeah. No.
You don't?
Why do you want to be a frog?
No,
What?
I want to be like a frog.
Okay.
And I want everybody to understand this, right? Because a frog can never jump backwards.
Go eat a fly.
Frogs can only jump forward.
Okay.
So I want to be like a frog. I can only move forward.
Sure. Okay. No, genuinely, I was curious, like, what the heck you were talking, because I think you misunderstood me. For a second, I thought you were shadow boxing, because, like, that's not what I believe at all.
Okay. I don't remember the specific talk that we were talking about.
There were multiples that he mentioned that.
Yeah, but I mean,
In my defense,
but
You were getting up.
I don't think it's logically consistent to be able to say that it's right for one thing and wrong for the other. I like to try to, like, I'm very thoughtful about my words most of the time, right?
Try to be, yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, I say most people. I don't think most people are. I think people just spew shit out their mouth, right?
Just go with your gut. You mean most people.
emotion.
No, I mean,
Emotion over logic.
yeah.
Debate's settled as far as I'm concerned. I'm not making comments on it anymore. Yeah.
We can get. I mean, honestly, we're at 2 hours.
We are. That's
we
true.
are.
We're at two. We're at 2:01. We
Like,
did this again last time.
Susan's like,
I'm starting to consider 2 hours to be the norm. Honestly,
Susan's like, I'm getting the hell out of
episodes,
here.
yeah,
Y'all can
for
keep
our
talking.
episodes. No, Susan has been here way too long. In my opinion, I think it is probably time we wrap it up because she does have to come back tomorrow for that event.
okay.
Yes.
I think we've covered the topic. Well, we dove a little bit into gender ideology a little bit.
A little bit. We'll
We-
next
we
time
dove in-
we'll
yeah.
get more into that.
We dove into I think we've covered a good bit of the Norse paganism, like how you believe, what you do, all that
a
kind of
fair
stuff.
bit of like the actual praxis of it.
I think
yeah.
that's really
you still
cool.
need to do. You need to send us the picture of your temple,
Well,
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna
going to.
send me
I'm
that so I
going
can
to.
put it over.
and then
you
you
know,
have something you're going to let us read
Yeah.
tomorrow.
So fucking forgive me, everybody.
Forgive it.
I forgot to bring another little bit of documentation. Last time I brought some documentation just in case we touched on the gender stuff, primarily just to say all of the data, all of the education, everyone that fucking is studying this.
You too,
subject-
You too, man.
See you
join us
later,
next
man.
Sunday.
Everyone that's studying, you take care too, man. Everyone that's studying that subject, doesn't agree with you. They agree with me, so on and so forth. And that's all that documentation was there
Or is
for.
it that you that agrees with them?
No, sure, whichever one you want to say. But either way, we agree. However, this time I was supposed to bring, or not supposed to, but I wanted to bring a copy of the Volspa and the Havamal. It's this little pocket book that's meant for soldiers because there's a lot of heathens in the military actually.
Yep.
It's a nice little olive drab, and it has the Bellows translation for the Volspa, which details Odin's interrogation of a CRS in order to learn about the creation of the world and also the end of the world. And then the Havamal, which are the words of the High One, was what it directly translates to, and is usually posited to be the direct words of Odin himself. Of course, being a non-mythic literalist, I don't think that these are literally Odin's words. I think that they're more so just wise proverbs, sources of ethics, things that you can look to answer some, pretty basic questions about things like moderation, things like hospitality, on hell, drinking. He actually talks about drinking in a fair bit.
Yeah.
He talks about how the bird of foolishness will fly over the heads of drunken men.
Yeah.
And he also talks about how he himself got drunk one time, fucking off his ass drunk, and how he made many mistakes when he was doing that, and how he felt that it wasn't wise.
Yeah.
And he also, again, further talking about it, mentioned that it is a wise thing to leave a party early, and to remember that party rather than to get drunk,
Not remember
and
it.
to not remember it.
That's
Did he-
interesting.
Did he ever turn water into wine?
He turned poetry into wine, kinda. Well, more so wine into poetry, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's done by a lot of artists nowadays.
True. Yeah.
Cool, man. I think this is a good point to stop it at.
Yeah, I think
Hey.
so too.
We could probably keep going.
Oh,
for
we
a
could
couple
go
of
on for
hours.
another
I
hour,
really
dude,
want to,
trust
but
me.
I
know. We got to go to
You got
Montgomery tomorrow.
families.
And
yeah.
Matt, you got a wife and kids.
I have children.
I think one Sunday we need to just, Nathan, be here at 6. We'll
Yeah,
go till 10.
right.
Right?
It's like a 4 episode
Whenever it ends,
special.
I'm
man.
gonna need to get one of those gray chairs up here then. For
I
that.
know, dude.
Yeah.
These are not that comfortable.
No.
Yes.
So, with that being said, thank you so much, Nathan. We appreciate you so much, man. All of your insight. I think, I think we agree on a lot of things.
Well, I'll put it like this. Because we are both theists and because we can both agree that the divine is real, we agree on a lot of things.
I was
going to
say, at least we both or all agree that there is a higher deity.
Yeah, there is something more.
Or deities.
Right, there's something more to existence than just what we got going on.
We
with
didn't
ourselves.
just become this because of a fart
Right.
in the universe.
And I think that because of that, we agree on a lot, surprisingly, on a fair bit.
Yes.
But when it comes to
I think it just comes down to
social stuff.
Who has the authority is what we're. Oh yeah, we do have social issues
Yeah.
that we discuss.
yeah. And I think that's neither here nor there. Honestly, I think some of it bleeds into theology. I think some of it is social constructed.
Well, real quick, just while we have just a brief minute, if we want to talk about like social constructs again.
Yeah, we're good. We got a brief hour.
Right,
apparently,
brief
so.
hour. Yeah, it just Susan, I hope you don't mind.
She's like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna do what I got to do, and I'm
Right.
out. And she's like, I'll lock the fuck up, bitches.
I was about to say, feel free
Right?
to walk out. It's okay. I'm not your boss. Don't listen to me. But we're talking about like social constructs and stuff like that. Forget about the social construct thing. Forget about all the scientific arguments and forget about all of the social arguments for trans people being valid and for gender identity even being a worthy concept of acknowledgement. Forget all of that. Let's, just for a brief moment, look at the spiritual argument for it. I hold, from my polytheistic point of view, that the gods are diverse. And so that therefore, humans are going to be diverse as we are products of the gods. The gods, by and large, are gender nonconforming. Some of them are flat out just trans. I mean, like it's just one of those things where it's like when you acknowledge the fact that the spiritual world is not uniform, when you acknowledge the fact that the spiritual world is not
But we're not in the spiritual.
black
Hold
and
on.
white, you can't look at that. You can't look at that acknowledgement and say that human experience thusly is going to be black and white.
But I can't look
as
at-
opposed
Hold on,
to the divine. As
So-
opposed to the divine.
And that is the third part of our Mead Talk.
Yes, third part.
There we go. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you. Let's end this now.
Yes, please, or we'll keep going for an hour.